is by Jeff Fister, one of our esteemed members, and he also was on the board as well. And he is going to be discussing raptors. So I'm quite interested in this. This is going to be great. So please welcome Jeff. I'm going to push this up here. I think it'll be okay for tomorrow. Okay. I'll put those up there.
You want them all on?
You want them all on?
I think we're probably going to need them all. My guess.
I'm going to have to move. Well, she wants to be able to. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Okay, Beth here. So, raptors. I got to be honest with you. Like a couple of years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I had absolutely no interest in birds. I mean, absolutely. I would not have been a bird watcher for anything. I mean, I liked anything else other than bird watching. But I met a guy over in Brewer, a really great carver, and I asked him to do some carving for our camp. And his name is Harry Lord, by the way. You probably heard the name if you're interested in carving at all. And Harry, who's, by the way, a good friend of Jim Bartlett's. Harry invited me to his shop and to learn how to carve. And so I have been actively doing this ever since. And I've really gotten into birds. Primarily started with songbirds, and then quickly got into raptor carving because it's where my interest really lies. Although I probably have done, I think it's safe to say about 115, 120 cardinals alone. I've done it, and that's where I started, but quite frankly, I'm kind of tired of doing it. And I teach carving in my shop in Hamden, and we always start with a cardinal. So there's been a lot of cardinals. This presentation is on. Let's see here. Is on raptors, and they really are very unique. There's something very special about them, particularly owls. And I'm going to mention raptors in general, and then I'm going to talk about owls in general, and then we're going to talk about a few specific owls that are found in Maine. I think that's particularly interesting. Most of my references come from either Floyd Schultz, who was a world famous bird carver, particularly raptors in Vermont. I've met Floyd. I'm a personal friend of Floyd's, and I have carved with him on 4 different occasions. There's a great book out. If you're interested in this at all and you want to know more about owls, there's a great book by Jennifer Ackerman, What Owls Know. It's absolutely fantastic. You'll learn more than you can possibly imagine about it. It's very easy reading, and it's a lot of fun, and there's some great pictures in that particular book. Raptors are a group of birds that live off of other animals. So I brought today a cardinal that I've carved. I didn't bring it because it's a raptor. I brought it because the cardinals are eaten by raptors. Okay. And there's a small bird that I'm going to show you, a saw-whet, that is in Maine, that actually catches them on the fly. So we're going to talk about raptors. And raptors comes from the Latin term which means to plunder, snatch, or seize. And there are 2 basic types of raptors. There are those that hunt their prey primarily in the day. They're diurnal raptors. They're the eagles, the hawks, the falcons, even birds that eat carcasses are in that group. Turkey vultures, for example. And then the second group is nocturnal raptors, and they're essentially the group of owls. We're going to spend most of our time on owls. So the diurnal raptors are the falcons, hawks, eagles, ospreys, which are, of course, in the rivers, and then the vultures. And they're found in one particular class, which is not important to us as far as the name's concerned, but they're all in that same class. At one time, it was thought that nocturnal raptors, owls, were related to them, but they're not. They're completely different from the And this is a statement that comes out of Floyd Schultz's book, that defines a raptor as any order of night birds of prey found throughout the world, distinguished by a large flat face, eyes surrounded by stiff feathered discs, a short hooked beak, feathered legs with sharp talons, that's the toenails, and soft plumage, which permits a very noiseless flight. And we'll get into that because they're very important. So they're not related to eagles or hawks or falcons or any of the falconiforms. They're really their own order and their own set. Now, the interesting thing about these owls is that they mate up, and there is sexual dimorphism. That is, the female is bigger than the male. But you can't tell the difference between them as far as their plumage is concerned. They're all the same color, basically. We don't know why there is sexual dimorphism, other than the fact that maybe, and this is just speculation, that the female is able to protect the eggs better. Perhaps they're different sizes because they can get different types of prey, different sizes. But the male is the one that primarily does most of the hunting while they have chicks that they want to that have hatched and they're needing to feed. As far as owl's vision is a big deal. This is a really, really big deal, because owls, although they don't see any better than anyone else when there's a complete lack of light, there's essentially no time when there's a complete lack of light. So they can see at night more than you can possibly imagine. And the reason for that, I'll show you in a diagram, is the way their eye is formed. It's got a very special formation. So they amplify the light at night, and they can see very, very well. And owls are very well, can see very well in the daytime, even better than other birds. They magnify the light through both the cornea, which is in the front of the eye, and in a lens, which is towards the back of the eye, or mid-eye, and it just keeps on magnifying this light so that they can see really, really well. The other aspect that makes it so that they can see well at night are rods, which are found in the retina. Rods are able to see well are anatomic devices that allow the owl to see well at night, while cones you see better during the day. So they got a lot of rods, less cones, despite the fact they can really see really well during the day. Whereas an eagle, for example, has a lot more cones than it does rods because it hunts during the day. The eyes are extremely large. You know, if we take an owl eye is 3% of its body. Now that may not sound like much until you realize that our eye is 0.0003% of our body.
Wow.
Okay, so it's gigantic. If we had an eye the size of an owl, in terms of proportion, 3%, it would be as big as my fist.
Wow.
Okay, so their eyes are really gigantic. I don't know if you've seen a commercial. There's been a commercial on TV in which you see an optometrist and an owl. There's an owl there, and the optometrist is examining this owl's eye, and the optometrist says, "Now, I want you to keep your head still, but I want you to follow my finger." And when he does, he follows his finger. He turns his head, and he brings it back. And the optometrist says, "No, I don't think you understand. Follow my finger," and moves his finger over, and he turns his head. And he says, no, you don't really understand. And the owl turns around and he says, "No, I don't think you really understand." The point is that the owl cannot move its eyes. Eyes don't move around, okay? Their eyes are similar to ours in the fact that they are they're binocular in terms of the way they look. Instead of monocular, if you think about a regular bird, cardinal, which you'll see, the cardinal eyes are on the side. They can see from this eye over here and from this eye over here, and they come to a center, where the owl's eyes look straight ahead. So in order to look, they're constantly moving their head up and down like this, okay? So their eyes are fixed, they can't move. So the head rotates almost 180 degrees and bobs up and down side to side. Now, 180 degrees is a lot of degrees. If you look at most textbooks, most of the textbooks will say that the owls can see about a 280 degree range. But that would be, you can see back, they can turn their head back here like this. But I've seen a picture of an owl which is almost from dead center, turned almost 180 degrees all the way back. And so some of the owls that I've carved, I've turned their head almost that amount because that can happen. They bob their head up and down, and they move their head from side to side. And the reason for that is when they're looking straight ahead at something, they're triangulating where their object is. If they see a mouse, for example, their eyes are fixed on that mouse, and they come together and they triangulate, and they can tell the exact distance that mouse is away. If they get up and they go to fly to get the mouse, they don't move their head, they move their body. So their head is always staying still. It's referred to as head stability. So the head's always looking straight ahead, exactly where it wants to go. It doesn't lose sight of its prey. And the body's moving. So as it's flying through the woods, you know, the head's staying still, the body's moving. It's really, really interesting. The eyes also have something that we don't quite understand, and that is that the hearing is tied into your eyesight, so that they triangulate with their hearing as well. But I'll show you that in a minute. This is unfortunately not the best picture that I've seen I could have taken, but it's focused with the darn taggies, but it's not focused where the skull is. This is a skull of a saw-whet owl. I'll show you the saw-whet owl is, bring them out so you can see a saw-whet. Saw-whet is this owl here. Now, if you take this is life-size saw-whet owl, full size. The male is in the back, up a little bit higher, a little bit smaller than the female. But if you look at that head is a little bit wider than my finger, the skull. So everything on the outside is fluff. You wonder how they get in these small holes. They get in small holes because as they enter into the hole, their feathers just collapse. Okay? So you'll see a better picture of this. But notice the center area there, the center of that thing. That's the eye itself.
Wow.
In fact, as you point that out.
That's the eye.
So if you're looking, you can actually see at the center here. That center there is the eye. That's where the orbit is. And if you look down just a little bit towards the back and down just a hair, that's where the external auditory meatus is. That's the ear canal right there. I'll show you that in another film, another slide, which makes the ears really interesting. So, you have this gigantic eye that can't move, but it's looking straight ahead. Here's a comparison of the eye. The upper one is the typical eye of an owl, where the lower one is the human eye. Notice the human eye is round. It has muscles on the outside, which is not diagrammed here, where we can move our eye from side to side, up and down. Where the owl's eye is more tubular, can't move it from side to side, up and down. But notice the cornea, that is the very front, that's on the upper part of the eye's out, it's really thick. And notice the lens, it's even thicker. And that's where the magnification comes for the light that comes in, so that they can see during the night. So the vision of an owl, the eyes are faced forward. The eyes are binocular in their vision, much like it is with humans. They have great depth perception. By their triangulation and their bobbing of the head up and down, they're able to focus exactly where they want to be. They triangulate their prey. That is, they're able to hone in eyesight wise and know exactly where the prey is. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting is that the eyelid of an owl is unlike eyelids of really any other birds, in the fact that the eyelids are very human-like. The upper eyelid there's primarily three eyelids in a bird, but the two eyelids which come together and close, the upper lid comes down to close with the lower, much like it does in a human. Whereas in other birds, that's not the way it happens. And the other thing about it has a third eyelid, and that's that nictitating membrane. So when they're flying through the woods, one of the things they can do is bring this nictitating membrane down and protect their eye against branches and leaves that they may hit as they're flying. And it also cleans the eye out as well. So notice the owl on the left-hand side, that's an owl. It is apparently nighttime when that photograph was shot, because the pupil is pretty good size. Whereas in the other side, the pupil's a lot smaller. But notice the membrane. See the extra membrane that's
Oh,
there?
yeah.
That's the nictitating membrane. And notice the eyelid looks just like a real eyelid like we have. It just so happens that although these two birds are different color, they're both the exact same species. They both happen to be screech owls, and which I'll show you in a minute. But notice the screech owl on the left-hand side, the eyelids are completely open.
Mm-hmm.
The eyelid on the other one, that screech owl is kind of sleepy. You know, the eyelid's kind of down.
Time for bed.
Yeah. Okay. As far as hearing is concerned, the hearing all comes from these large facial discs that you know are very common of owls. They have these large facial discs, and it just so happens that the sound that comes to them is able to weave through those facial discs, and the feathers in there are able to direct the sound directly to the external auditory meatus on each side. So the ear opening, the external auditory meatus, is located in the back of the disc. The ear opening has different sizes, that is, different sizes and location. I'm going to show you a picture where the ear canal on one side is high, the other ear canal is low. And they can also, they have a membrane on the outer part of the ear that they can close or open wider so they can hear better or hear less if they want to hear less. It just so happens that this difference in position of the ear canal, it also allows them to triangulate the sound. So they don't actually have to see the prey, they can hear it. They can hear a mouse walking through the woods, and they know exactly where it is. So if that mouse is underneath the snow, they don't see it obviously, they hear it, they're able to go to it, triangulate with their hearing, and as they're about ready to snatch, they get down to the snow, they bring their legs out really with their claws out, their toes out, and their talons out, and they pounce on that thing and actually kill it by pouncing on it. And as soon as they hit it, it's an automatic thing. They don't have to do anything. Their claws tighten up, and then everything retracts and they're off and on their way. So they kill their prey primarily with their legs, and the pouncing, the pressure, and the talons, which go deep into the prey itself. The talons are very, very sharp. And then, if it's not quite dead, then they may use their beak to kill it the rest of the way, but they don't do that at first, primarily because they're trying to keep the prey away from their eyes. They can't afford to have their eyes injured in any way. So the ear opening has different sizes and different locations. There's a skin flap that can change the shape and position of the ear canal, and their hearing is very, very sensitive. All owls have very sensitive hearing, but those that hunt in the woods, that fly through the woods, are those that have the greatest hearing, and that's the gray owl, the spotted owl, the barred owl, and the boreal owl. I'll show you a boreal owl here eventually. I have a barred owl as well that I'll show you that we flew into our camp one day. Now some owls have ear tufts. That is, these are projections that stick up above the head, and I'll show you that in one of the carvings. They have nothing to do with ears. They have nothing to do with hearing. The ear tufts are felt to be basically rather for courtship, for appearance, camouflage. When an owl at night or during the day, when an owl during the day is resting, they generally rest close to the main trunk of a tree, and they're standing there pretty upright. And if they happen to have ear tufts, their ear tufts, if they're afraid, they're concerned about something, the ear tufts go up because it makes them more camouflaged. So that's the reason for the ear tufts. Now, here's the other picture of that skull, which is much better picture. And the discs that I refer to are these structures here. This is the disc, the whole disc. Wow. And of course, it's a bilateral structure. Some owls, like the saw-whet, have a very plain disc where they don't have individual lines or grooves or different feathers, whereas some of the owls that I have here are very different. The ear opening is always in the back of the disc, but so the sound comes into the disc, gets directed directly to the external auditory canal, and one canal is higher than the other. Let me just, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go over here. And I wanna show you the two canals. This is a canal up here, right there, but down here is the other one.
Oh,
Notice that
wow.
one's up, one's down. That allows them to triangulate their sound so that they can hear what's going on. And somehow, they don't quite understand, there are nerves that go from the ear directly into the eye as well. So somehow, there's an involuntary mechanism that allows them to triangulate both their eyes and their ears at the same time at their prey. Oh, by the way, these are the ear tufts here. Have nothing to do with hearing, but simply camouflaged. And you've seen those, that's pretty common on some of the commercials. You know, you see these owls with their ear
Right.
tufts up, right? Okay, so as far as the wing and feather design is concerned, this is really very important as well. So we've got hearing, we've got vision, which are key for owls that other birds don't have, but other birds also don't have this feather and wing design, which is really key for them to fly. Owls fly without any sound. That is, I can't tell you how many times I've been in the woods and all of a sudden a bird flies up, you know, and I'm scared. All of a sudden, I'm startled. I can't believe what just happened. And then you see this bird flying off. You don't hear an owl once it gets off. It can fly right by you and never see it. We had an owl fly into our yard. I was sitting on a porch in our camp, and this owl flies in, and I didn't hear him, but he's right smack dab in front of me. I can't believe it. I'll show you the picture of that. So it just so happens that the feather design is such that the feathers are soft and supple. They have a modified edge on the wing and the front of the wing. But in addition to that, they have hair-like extensions that stifle the sound so that the sound is completely lost. Now, looking at that first statement, that hair-like extensions, reminds me of something I should have mentioned. It's not on the slide. I'm going to go back to hearing. As we get older, we lose our hearing. I'm in hearing aids right now for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons is I'm getting older, right? We can't reproduce the little cilia in our ears that allow us to hear. Mice don't have that ability either. Mammals don't have that ability. They lose their hearing as they get older. Not true of owls. Owls are able to reproduce the cilia, so their hearing is as good on the first day they hunt as the last day that they hunt. So they're able to hear just as well. They don't lose that. The wings are rounder and they're shorter because instead of if you were an eagle or a falcon, particularly falcons are really fast, right? And when they're up high and they dive down, and their wings are long and they're thin, and allows them to really drop down out of the sky and get the prey that they want to get. Owls aren't like that. Owls have shorter and rounder wings. They're more buoyant. Some of them can hover over something. If they don't know exactly where it is, they can hover and hear it and then pounce on what it is they're trying to get. So the sound muffling allows two things. It allows them to surprise their prey, so a mouse can't hear that it's coming. It also allows the owl to hear better as it's flying. So it has those two purposes. So the distinct advantage, of course, is towards the owl. Here's a picture of the wings themselves. The top picture of the wing on the left is referred to as a high aspect ratio wing. That's the owl that's the wing design of a falcon. Whereas notice the lower one is one of a silhouette. That's the one here on the left hand, the carving. And notice it's really shorter and it's a lot fatter. So they can go slower and fly and even hover if they have to hover with that wing design, which you couldn't do with the other wing design. The picture on the right hand side is a depiction of the major feathers of the wing, and the fact that the leading edge, which is the upper edge on this particular thing, the leading edge has those little noiseless little barbs that are on the edge that muffles the sound as they're flying. Okay, so owls, their feet and their talons are what really kill the bird. They have four toes, like most birds, which are kind of interesting in the fact that they really are, their toes, if you think about it, toes on a cardinal, there are 3 forward toes on a cardinal and a rear toe on the cardinal. So you have 3 and 4, and makes 4. So you got 3 forward, 1 towards the back. Interestingly enough, the owl has the same design, but the outside toe can be forward or it can go back. Okay, it can go to the side. And so it's really the outside talon, outside toe, and the middle toe that do the primary killing. So when it comes in, that toe comes around to the outside, this toe's on the inside, and it squeezes where it's getting a hold of, and the others then come down onto it. So that's what, so notice it says outer toe is reversible, it can go front or to back. Tridactyl means that 3 toes are towards the front. Zygodactyl means that 2 toes are towards the front, 2 toes are in a different position. The talon is concave, that is, if you take a look at, I'll show you a picture of this, but the talon is conical in shape, and it's very sharp, very, very sharp. But if you were able to look underneath of it, it would be concaved in shape, okay? So and it's able then to grab and hold on to it that way, as opposed to if it was completely around diameter. And then the legs are densely feathered to the toes for protection and for warmth, primarily. They extend their legs and feet forward to open the talons while diving for prey. So they come out with their toes out. It's a pretty classic picture. Once you see it, you'll never forget it. So here are the toes of various owls: the great horned owl, saw-whet, and of course on the top of the barn owl. Notice the great horned owl and the cross section there on the bottom to the right, and you can see the cross section and how it's concaved underneath. Okay, and there are the toes of a saw-whet over there, and the toes on that, they're really sharp, and they keep growing just like fingernails do, and they continue to keep. I don't know how they keep them sharp, but they keep them very, very sharp. Now the beaks are also used in killing prey to some extent, but primarily that's done with their toes and their talons, as I mentioned, and they're pouncing on something. But the beaks are able to tear up the prey. And notice the beak is low on the face as opposed to high, and so therefore it keeps the prey that they're getting away from their eyes. That's key. And the beak is curved sharply down. The nostrils are you can see on that bird up pretty high, but towards the outside, and the owls themselves have a poor sense of smell. Now, here's the interesting thing about owls in terms of their eating. The owls will take a prey, and they generally take a prey which is primarily a size that they can handle pretty easily. Sometimes they'll go for something bigger, but generally they can handle it pretty easily. So let's say a saw-whet, one of these small owls over here on the left-hand side on the table, was to pick up a mouse. That mouse, they're gonna kill the mouse with their pouncing. They're gonna go to the back of the neck and sever the cord, and then they're dead. But then that owl, the saw-whet in particular, will behead the mouse, generally discard it, and then eat the rest of it, either whole or in pieces. You wonder how they eat it in whole. The problem is, owls don't have the ability to digest bones. They don't have the ability to digest feathers, hair, or the talons, fingernails, claws, things like that. They can't digest it. So what they do is they take the animal in whole, perhaps. It goes into their stomach. They digest everything that they possibly can digest. And then the rest of the body that they can't digest, they compact. Okay? And so they have these compacted pellets, they call them.
Yes.
And the pellets get really tight, they pack them really tight. And then they have to regurgitate that pellet before they can take something else to eat. So one of the ways to find a nest of owls when you're walking through the woods is to look around trees, and you may see these pellets on the ground that they regurgitated, and you know there's something up above. Okay, either that or they have their bowel movement, of course, white. That's a name for it. I can't think of their bowel movement, but whatever the case, they're the two things you can find at the base of the tree when you're looking for an owl, because you can't see them. You really can't see them. So the beaks tear the prey up. They are low on the face, allowing vision to be maintained. They're sharply curved downward, and the nostrils are forward, but that really not for smell, just really for inhalation and exhalation. Now, as far as coloration is concerned, that's another thing that's interesting in birds. I've carved a lot of birds. I mean, all different types of birds, and they're all colored different, except for owls. Owls, although they may look different because they have different lines and spots and things of that nature, they're always browns or grays, maybe a sienna colored, often some whites. You're not going to see a real red bird. You're not going to see a blue bird. You're not going to see those really distinguishing colors. You're just not going to see. So their browns are subtle, and despite the fact they're subtle, it doesn't mean that you can't tell them apart by the way they look, because they have these stripes or spots, chevrons, bars, streaks that make them different. Now, that owl that you can see on this line there, that's a Saul-Whet owl. I don't know. One of my favorite movies is My Cousin Vinny. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh God, yes,
It's a
that's
great
great.
movie.
Yes.
But in that movie, Vinny, who's the lawyer, or supposed to be a lawyer, he's out on a campsite in a cabin with who was the gal, Val?
Marissa Tomei.
Marissa
Yeah,
Tomei.
yeah, she's really cute in that movie. But he comes out with a gun, he starts shooting around because he hears this screeching, and it's a screech owl out there, and you actually get a chance to see a real screech owl in that movie. It's really kind of interesting. But notice, this screech owl is one of the eared owls. It has the ear tufts that are not up completely, but down somewhat. But notice the stripes, the chevrons, the bars that are found on the feathering. It makes it different than other owls. The screech owl is the first type of owl that I ever carved, and I'll show you an owl like that. So you can't determine that age or the sex by their coloration. Now, there are two types of owls, basically, that we have. We have those that have ear tufts and those without ear tufts. And we have both types in Maine. We have those that are eared and those that are non-eared. Now, here are the eared owls that you may hear of in Maine. The eastern screech owl, we have that owl, generally in the southern part of the state, not so much in the north. Great horned owl, the short-eared owl, and the long-eared owl, they're found throughout the state. Those that are non-eared are the northern Saul-Whet, the burrowing owl. That burrowing owl, by the way, is the only owl that doesn't really nest in a tree. It nests in a burrow in the ground itself. Completely different. Common barn owl, the barred owl, the boreal owl, which I'll show you, the snowy owl, and the great gray owl. Now, and I mentioned most of these are either grays or they're browns, and maybe a sienna colored. But there are a few that are very different, like the snowy owl, almost not completely white, but very, very white. Or you may see a barn owl, which is kind of like a cream color. And then there are others that have a fair amount of cream, but always browns. There's just browns all over when you see an owl. One of the things that I should mention about a snowy owl, or about most owls actually, if an owl gets displaced from its habitat, its normal habitat, it will go generally to an area that has a similar habitat. So let's talk about, for example, a snowy owl. A snowy owl, most of them are up in the tundra area. If they get displaced, 3 guesses where they end up. Generally, they go to airports because it's an open area, like the tundra is. So it's not uncommon to see a lot of snowy owls in an airport, in the area of an airport. The eastern screech owl, which is, let's see, eastern screech owl. Maybe we ought to handle the light off and on. Can we do that? Is that possible?
Okay, Jane's gonna.
So this is my rendition of an eastern screech owl. It has ear tufts. But if you compare that to those birds over there, you're going to notice all the little different chevrons and streaks that are found in this owl as opposed to that, and yet basically they are the same color. So this is a screech owl. This is the one you find in Vinny in the movie My Cousin Vinny. Kind of an interesting little bird. The screech owl is the one that makes a real loud screech. If you happen to be in the woods, you hear it, it wakes you up, okay? So it's a real loud screech. The saw-whet owl comes from they're not sure, but they think maybe from a French name, particularly around the Quebec area, when early on, when they first noticed these owls in the area, because the coet, I think, means little bird in French, or something along that line. And so they referred to coet, and it went to saw-whet. We changed it to saw-whet. So this is just an owl that's looking down, and it's looking down and sees something that's about ready to leave and pounce on. This is one that's not done yet, and this is going to be, so this is an eared owl. The rest of these are non-eared owl, and this is what they prey on.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy. And they can get them, these little birds here can catch them in flight.
Really?
And they can catch hummingbirds.
Really? Hummingbirds are
Oh,
famous.
yeah. So there are two types of screech owls. This is a screech owl. This is a gray-phased screech owl. Okay? That's a gray-phased. Takes a long time to paint them. But it's an interesting bird. And notice the discs have multiple circles, whereas in the saw-whet, there's only one circle that makes up really the disc itself. Okay, these are screech owls. Two of them. There's the gray phase and the red phase. It just so happens that I carved that saw-whet owl, and then immediately I got home from the carving, I was away for 10 days, and the next day I left for Disney. Had to go to Disney to help our daughter with her kids, and son-in-law with her kids. And we happened to go to a little park, and wouldn't you know, they had saw-whet owls there.
Oh,
I was
jeez.
really kind of sure got some fresh pictures. Okay, the eastern screech owl. This is the one that's got ear tufts, opportunistic feeder, non-migratory, stays all year round, strictly nocturnal, hunt only at night. They're very aggressive in defense of their young or their territory. They nest in hollow trees primarily, and they're around 7 to 9.5 inches long, considered a small to moderate size owl. They're swift and agile flyers despite their short tail. Now, I should mention that we have two types basically of small owls in Maine. One is eared and one's non-eared. But out in the West, Midwest and Pacific Northwest, there are 3 different types of very, very small owls. I mean, smaller than the cardinal. The elf owl, the flammulated owl, and also a pygmy owl. So they're very, very small. I've carved them all, and they're really fun to carve, and they really look kind of cute when they're done with it. They're kind of neat. They're so small. This is a red-phased screech owl. That's the one that I carved is a gray phase, so this is a red phase. The screech owl lives in city parks and dense hemlock, spruce thickets. I mean, it is able to live in a variety of different areas. Feeds on small mammals, worms, snakes. Large eyes with well-developed discs, as you can see on that one that I've carved. And then they're pretty barred. They have these barred lines throughout their wings. And then they have these white lines throughout their wings that I'll show you when we turn the lights on. This is a northern saw-whet. This is the 2 that I've carved over here, actually 3, but the 2 that I've carved over there. They're smaller, 7 to 8 inches. They're relatively approachable. I mean, you can get to them. They don't have any ear tufts. They have a rounder head. The male and the female look the same, but the female is larger, as I mentioned, and heavier. Yellow eyes, fluffy brows. They're highly nocturnal, only night, and they roost during the day. So the feet are feathered to the toes. Northern saw-whet, they have these white spots run throughout their body. They're found throughout the U.S. except in the desert area in the Southwest in particular. They love the water and they live in forests near water. They're particularly after insects, mice, bats, and songbirds. And they catch prey on the wing, as I mentioned. They nest in cavities. These are 2 saw-whets that I carved some time ago. And they are, now I meant the same thing, same size as the ones that we saw before. I'll go over that down before I tell you to go through that. Now this is a bird, this is a barred owl. Notice that it's got the browns, but it also has a fair amount of white on its body. It's barred because it's barred horizontally across the chest and vertically in the abdomen area. This owl is the owl that flew right up. Now it looks like it's out of focus, but it's really not out of focus. That's what it looked like. That darn thing. I was on the front porch. You saw that, right, Bart?
Mm-hmm.
We were on the front porch of the camp. He flew right up, looked right at us, knew we were there. Didn't hear him come in. Just I happened to see a streak, and it was believe it or not, it's really close to dawn here, but my camera somehow lights it up. But it really, or during dusk, almost during sunset. So it was time for this thing to start to hunt. And this is the same. That's not that same bird, but this is a barred owl. Another example. They're non-migratory. I mentioned the stripes. They're widespread in the U.S. and Canada. They're primarily nocturnal, and they nest again in cavities, spruce, pine, hemlock, and they sleep at daytime, all camouflaged up in tangles of branches, much like this.
That's it.
This is the same bird. He flew up into a tree. I got down off of the porch. I got down off of the porch, and I started to take pictures of him. And you can see how he can be pretty camouflaged. Now he's out pretty far on a branch right now, but he could be if it was really daylight, which it is not. It looks like it is, but it is not. It would be right up against the trunk during the day, and that's basically it.
He wants to hide.
So let's have the lights. So I don't have a barred owl. I haven't done a barred owl yet. This is a new owl that I'm not quite done yet. I've got a lot to finish on this particular one yet. But this is one in which he just caught a mouse. He's bitten I've got to finish painting him. He's not done painting. This is not done yet. It's got to have some coloration like that it has in it. But this one here is a boreal owl. Now boreal owls are really interesting. Boreal owls are probably the brightest, most advanced owls in all the owl world. They're bigger than the screech owl. They're primarily in the tundra area. And what they do is they catch their prey, particularly lemmings, and when they get their lemming, they cache them in these holes. So they find a hole in the tree and they get them down there. And they can have 100 of them in there.
Oh, jeez.
But it's so cold in the tundra, they don't go bad.
No.
So they can eat them at any time.
It's
right?
a refrigerator.
Right, so that's what they do. It's a bigger bird, and they are found in Maine, but rarely. They're found in northern Maine, and primarily when the food supply gets low in Canada, in their tundra area, they fly down into Maine, and so they are found in Maine. So it's another interesting bird. It has a very big head compared to the other birds. The head is really pretty big. But despite that, if you look at the eyes, and then you consider the skull only comes out a little bit more. So the skull is so small in that bird, that's why it can get in that hole. You wouldn't think, you didn't make that hole big enough. No, we did make the hole big enough. The hole has to be, on these owls, has to be 2.5 inches wide.
Wow.
So if you get 2.5 inches, that bird can get in there, it can move around, and come back out. And you wouldn't think that could happen, But yeah. So that's the latest project. When I started doing this, I told Harry, I see Harry every Monday. He and I carve every Monday, and I told Harry, I said, Harry, I'm going to do a boreal owl. He said, boreal owl? Yeah, I said, boreal owl. I said, they're from the tundra. I've been reading about them. I said, they're really kind of interesting. And I said, I'm going to put a mouse in there. You go, what? I said, put a mouse in there. He says, you can't do that. The women won't like that. They will not like that mouse. I said, well, I've got an idea what I'll do with it.
He's a removable mouse.
Right.
So what I do, this thing will be cemented on, and I will make the feathers of this go into the wood. But this thing here is held in by a magnet. So I can just stick it in there, and if somebody doesn't like it, they can remove it.
Yeah, oh, that's right. He hasn't bitten the head off.
So that's one he just caught, and
That's cool.
you may appreciate this. Jim, it's got some red blood and some darker blue, you know, as if it's been there for a little bit. You've seen plenty of blood as I have, so. Have any questions?
That's awesome. That was amazing.
What's your favorite owl?
Good
My
question.
favorite owl right now is this owl right here. He's my favorite. I have another one that I'm going to do. I carve these primarily for competition.
Dude.
So I have a number of competitions. This one has already been in competition. That has as well. And so I come from a competition now. So this one here, I got an idea of. I saw a picture without the mouse, and of a regular bird, and I thought I can do that with a boreal owl. But I've got another one in which the owl is going to have its wings out.
Ooh.
Feet are going to be on the hole at the base of the hole, and I'm wondering whether I should have a lemming hanging down. I can't get a magnet in there.
Just leave the head on.
So,
Yeah, just leave the head on, and we'll be fine.
yeah, leave the head on.
Leave the head, please.
Well, that was fun. I love owls. They're so interesting, and it's hard to believe how they have. God has made them. It's just really amazing.
Are there any you've never seen that you're still trying to see, or have you seen them all?
No, I haven't seen. Well, that's a good question. I carved with this guy. This you're not going to believe. I carved with this guy, Floyd Schultz, who has two of the books that I've shown. Carved with him 4 times. He is literally, arguably, the world leader in raptor carving.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, he sold an owl, a flying owl, for a commission for a guy in Toronto for $500,000.
Oh,
Wow.
jeez.
Gigantic bird.
Wow.
Yeah, it took him 2 years to do the bird. But this guy, we were in a hotel for 3 years. The first 3 years that I was with him, we were in a hotel and we were carving there with a group of us. We were carving with him. But the hotel wanted to change the room design, so they kicked him out, and he ended up at VINS, which is the Vermont Institute for Natural Science. And it just so happens at VINS, they have all types of owls. So through that venue, I've seen a lot of them.
Oh,
Most
really?
of them. I would carve a bigger bird. I'm going to carve a barred owl soon. The one that you see there, that's a pretty good sized bird. That runs up to 20 inches high.
That's
long.
a big bird.
So that's a big bird. And I don't think that's going to be too hard to paint. The problem with this is as an art form. You can be a good carver and a lousy painter, and you get a lousy job. Whereas if you could be just a mediocre carver and paint well, pretty nice. I don't think I've gotten the painting down well yet. I'm still working on that. I think carving is getting there.
I know,
but
it's good to me.
the painting has
Yeah, it looks
no,
great. Yeah.
a lot to get to before I really can be what you would consider a good carver. We're going to go to the World Carving Championship in Salisbury, Maryland. It's actually in Ocean City, Maryland. That's in April, and they have the world's best carvers there, and you just can't imagine what people can do with these. You just can't imagine. So, I'm going to go. I'm going to present some birds, but it's not going to be like, what they present. It's just incredible what they present.
What type of wood?
Well, that's a good question. The wood itself is, there are 2 types of wood. Most people carve with basswood. Let's see, this is basswood. This happens to be, this base here happens to be cedar. This is basswood, that's basswood. But the birds themselves on all of these happen to be Tupelo. Now, basswood is found in Maine. So we have plenty of basswood, but one piece of basswood is not the same as the next piece of basswood. Some of them are hard to carve, some of them aren't. Whereas Tupelo, by and large, is always really good. Tupelo is found down in the bayous. And it's harvested from trees that are in the swamps. They can only use the first, as I understand it, the first 5 to 7 feet or so of the Tupelo. So it's expensive. It's very expensive.
So you order that? And
So I order that, and I buy a fair amount of it. I've got some now. I'm going to want to buy in In October some more.
Barb sees the dollar signs.
Well, she knows about that, cause I already talked to her about it, but,
That was less than 6
I'm
months.
hoping to buy some more.
He already bought it back about less than 6 months ago, and he told me, he says, but I got another batch.
Well, he had a whole batch of it, and he said, and I said, I want the whole batch, and I said, well, maybe I better talk to Bart. I took half the batch, and I said, I'm gonna buy the other half when I see him. So he'll be there, and I'll buy his wood, but that stuff's really expensive, but it carves like butter.
Oh, really?
It is so nice in the carving. It is hard at first to get used to. When I first did it, the guys I was carving would say, you're not gonna like this at first, and I didn't. I thought, I'm not gonna do that, maybe instead of basswood. The problem with basswood is that basswood, like other woods, when you wet it, it gets rough. You know, the grain comes up on it, and no matter what you do, it's hard to get rid of that grain. So it's not as smooth as I like it to be, whereas this, no issue. You sand it, and you can bring up the grain, but there's not much grain, you can sand it again, you just don't have it, and when you go to paint it, you know, all these birds have to be sealed first with a sanding sealer, then they have to be painted solid white, which is like a base coat, and it gets you back to the basics, and then you go from there in your painting, so, it's different. This one here should have been painted, well, most people would paint this solid white first. I didn't do that. I found the white material they paint it with is called gesso, and gesso is the base paint. Just so happened Harry ordered some gesso in a big can, and I go over there and he says, Jeff, I don't like this. And he says, you want it? I said, yeah, I'll take it if you want it. And it's clear. It's a clear gesso, perfect for this, because it allows the base of the wood to come out. You can see it. So I don't have to paint it white, and then, because you get white in these little tiny cracks, and it's hard to cover, right? So it's a clear, transparent gesso, so that works out really pretty well. So
Question.
I don't carve just raptors. I carve rough grouse, and I carve pileated woodpeckers, and a variety of different things. But my favorite really are the owls.
Question. On the sawwhet owl.
Yeah, so what?
Right. You said that catches songbirds.
Yes,
Let's say.
and it catches them it can catch them on the wing.
Right. But it's a nocturnal bird and those.
It's a nocturnal bird. Yes, it's a nocturnal
So
bird.
explain
Very
why
standard.
the songbirds and where it's catching them.
Yeah, there is a period between when you know there's just sunlight,
Right.
and before it gets really dark, we would consider it really dark when a bird would be flying, they catch. But primarily, it is a nocturnal bird, very nocturnal. It doesn't like to come out during the day. But it's during that particular thing. But if you read the textbooks, they'll tell you that they can catch them on the wing. So that would have to mean that it's either early in the morning or, you know, real early in the morning or late at night, just before because they can see well. Where the other birds, they have no idea. And of course, the other birds, they can be flying around, they don't hear them. They have no idea they're in the area. So, yeah.
Jeff, do we know how many owls, all the different species that are in Maine, do we have an idea of
Yeah,
its
there-
population?
Yeah, we do, and I didn't bring that with me, but there are, there's about 20 different owls in Maine.
Wow,
Yeah, a lot of owls, a lot of
that's a
different
lot of different.
But this owl is found throughout the entire state.
This does.
Very, very common. Silhouette, very common, you know, and whenever you see a book with a picture on it, like on the front page, it's generally gonna be a silhouette.
Oh.
It's small, it's relatively easy to put on the front of a book, and it's very, very common throughout the entire US except for the Southwest. Whereas the screech owl this is the eastern screech owl. It's found primarily east of the Mississippi. There is a western version, but that's found east of the Mississippi, and it's primarily in New Jersey and south. And we do get them in southern Maine, but not nearly, they don't
Not
go
as
to
much.
the northern Maine. We do get those. So, yeah.
That's fantastic.
But I think I've done the most of these, and there's a store in Monson, Maine, that sells these, and most of the times I'll get somebody a commission. Somebody wants me to do it. We're going to New Jersey in
New Jersey.
2 weeks,
Yeah.
and there's a guy down there. He and his wife, have asked for 2 of these, and I didn't bring them, I didn't want, they're done. I didn't
Don't wanna hurt them.
We didn't bring them, right.
They need to.
Yeah, so we've got that, and I have somebody wants a pileated woodpecker.
Oh, those are
Yeah, a pileated
I love
woodpecker's a
those.
big bird.
Yes.
They're huge.
Huge. And they're not black. You'd think they're black and red and white, but they're not. They got purples and magenta in them, and you gotta paint them first, and then you spray over them gently with a soft black, a brown and black mixture. But so that you don't fill up all the holes, you still see the magenta, you still see the purple, which is the primary colors. I had that at a show in Orono, and I had it out at a show, and believe it or not, it's under the category of songbirds. So it's under a songbird category, and it just so happens in the auditorium, the big auditorium at the university, there's lights, there's windows, lights up high, and it just so happens that when the judges were coming around, the sun was coming right in, and you could see those magenta sparkle.
Perfectly
It
placed.
was. It worked just right. And, yeah. So, but then it's really in the painting that really sets it off. I think these aren't painted too bad. That's probably painted the best of all of them.
Looks
This
good.
is really easy to paint. This one. Maybe that's why I like it so much.
They're really beautiful.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
No, they're not painted. They're everybody that I carve with, they say we got to paint this now. I said I don't call it painting. I water down my paint, so it's water. It is thinner than skim milk.
Oh.
And I put a layer on. I put another layer on. I put another layer on, and it could be 15 layers to get to the color you want.
Yeah.
And then you get variety. You only use one brown, but you get a variety of browns because you're hitting them in a different way each time. So it's really a wash, more of a wash than it is a paint.
Beautiful.
How does this compare to the chairs that you used to do?
Well,
The chairs you carved.
I like the chairs. The problem is you can only make so many chairs. You know, people aren't interested in antique chairs. I give them away, and they're not interested in antique chairs. That people are interested in birds. They're really, and these are much harder to do than chairs.
Yeah. Really.
Now, chair will take me, to do a full chair, it'll take me a good 2 weeks. But this one here is going to take me, total time is going to take me 2 months by the time I get that other one. I mean, that mouse is not done yet. You know, I've got to get other colors in there. I've got to get other.
That mouse has to look ragged.
So,
Yeah, a little more red.
no more red.
Oh, no more red.
No more red. You
No
don't
more
like
red.
red. Damn, see,
You just wanna see the
that's why
fight.
I got the magnet in there for you.
Just brings back horrible memories. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Oh
The
dear.
difference between my carvings and I call my birds, you should know this, I call my birds 6 to 10 birds. 6 to 10. 6 to 10. Because they look the best when you're standing 6 to 10 feet away.
I like that. That's good.
But I lost my train of thought where I was going. But in the bird carving contest, people are getting very, very fancy. To the extent where they got absolutely beautiful habitat, but it's not natural habitat. But it's gorgeous. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. And the judges have a tendency to go for that type of thing. And I'm not going there.
Yeah.
I want natural stuff. So you can expect to see that in the woods.
Right. Right.
This you can expect to see in the woods.
Yeah.
And that's me. I'm not doing it for the judges. I'm doing it for me. It just so happens that they don't like it. They don't like it.
You do a great job, Jeff.
It's there for no
Very
reason.
nice. Thank you.
Thank you.